of a no-fly zone to the enemy would be have a significant deterring effect on their desire to fly. I think we know that to be the case.
Jay Stout in Los Angeles, just a quick word from you again on the logistics side of things. Both those men, they seem to be saying, yes, it's a military operation, but yes, it would actually work. It would deter military flights out of Libya at least. My thoughts, and this is very basic thoughts, is that this is something that could be easily defied, especially by a man like Colonel Gaddafi. If he wants to send his planes in the air, he probably will.
He could, but if he puts his planes in the air, those pilots are going to die if a no-fly zone is established. It's interesting to me, the recently reported bombing at Brega is a good indicator of the state of the Libyan Air Force. A single jet apparently dropped 2 bombs. Now, normally, aircraft don't go out in single by themselves. Normally they go in pairs or in flights of 4 or in bigger packages. So that tells me is that the Libyan Air Force has decayed to a point where they can't get more than 1 or 2 aircraft airborne, or that the pilots aren't willing to fly. But again, it's a good indicator of the state of the Libyan Air Force.
Okay, this is good. We're getting an idea of the logistics behind how it works. I want to look at the legality now. That's why we've got Khawa Qureshi with us from London to talk about, as I say, legality. Am I right in saying that for this to be quote-unquote legal, it will need a UN Security Council resolution, something like, and I believe it was called Operation Deny Flight, which was used in Bosnia back in 1993?
That's certainly the position that's put forward by certain members of the Security Council. There'll be viewers familiar with what happened in Iraq after the intervention in 1990. From 1991 to 2003, the United Kingdom and France set up no-fly zones in the northern and southern sectors of Iraq, principally to protect the Kurds in the north and the Shias in the south. The Russians took the view that this was not permissible. The Security Council resolution authorizing use of force in Iraq, Resolution 688 of December 1990, didn't permit the continuation of combat activities and air patrols by UK and French fighter planes, which were not passive, they were active. Moving forwards, the resolution that was passed by the Security Council on the 26th of February of this year condemns the violation of human rights in Libya, imposes sanctions on the Libyan regime, but doesn't expressly authorize the use of military force, let alone the creation of no-fly zones. So whilst the British Prime Minister, Mr. Cameron, has been very active in promoting this idea, and others have joined him, there have been voices of opposition voiced, not least by the Russians. So actual implementation might be problematic.
Yeah, we do see this with the UN Security Council. We often see the idea of splits when moving towards resolutions. Let's have a quick look, though, at something. They call this Chapter 42, or at least in part, of the United Nations Charter. It says if non-military methods are deemed insufficient, it, the Security Council, may take such action by air, sea or land forces as may be necessary to maintain or restore international peace and security. Such action may include demonstrations, blockade and other operations by air, sea or land forces of members of the United Nations. Khawa Qureshi, is that enough if there is no resolution which makes a legal no-fly zone, if I can put it that way? Is Chapter 42 enough to cover them?
Let's be clear that the Security Council in its resolution 1970 has invoked Article 41. Article 41 has imposed economic and non-military measures. If we consider the situation in Iraq, Resolution 687, it passed in August 1990, imposed non-military measures by invoking Article 41. The military measures, authorization of use of force, took place in December 1990 through Resolution 688. So several months were allowed to pass. Saddam Hussein's regime was given an opportunity to leave Kuwait. It had invaded a sovereign state, and its failure to do so led to authorization of use of force. Resolution 1970 was only passed 3 days ago. It expressly refers to Article 41. For Article 42 to be utilized, it would require the Security Council to pass another resolution, unanimous, where all of the permanent powers agree. As I've just mentioned, the Russians have begun to voice dissent as to the imposition of a no-fly zone. So it's possible, as happened in the case of Iraq in 1991, that certain members of NATO and or the Security Council may have to undertake such action on their own without Security Council cover if they believe strongly enough that this is necessary and justified.
Okay, so we've looked at the logistics, we've looked at the legality. The Libyan people, though, are the ones at the centre of all this. Wahid Burshan over there on the border, let's come back to you, because the idea you put forward earlier was that the Libyan people obviously want some help, they want some assistance, but it's a case of how much and how big and potentially damaging that assistance could be. We're discussing all of this. We're talking about other countries intervening. What about countries in the region? The Arab League, those sorts of Arab solutions for Arab problems, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, if I may, I would like to go back to the point. I think that was Senator McCain or the General Central Command was mentioning that they have to take the air defenses out and things like that in order for them to have, to manage the skies. I think that could be problematic. I would really think that the Libyan people may consider that hostile, and it may tip the point to Gaddafi. I really think that needs to be managed properly in terms of how they deal with the Libyan military. The Libyan military, obviously, they are not necessarily pro-Gaddafi. It's I mean, they are ordered to do, and as a matter of fact, I want to go back to the point of the bombing of Ajdabia and Brega, and the gentleman, he was right that there was a single plane that did that, but what we heard, the reports were those bombs were really kind of not on target. They kind of, the officers themselves were throwing those bombs, away from the target. As you can see, there's a dissent in the military, and I think we need to be careful, and the Libyan people are aware of that. If we kind of target the military that may be a problem. And to go back to your point or your question about the Arab League, I'm not sure there's that much confidence in what the rest of the Arab countries may be able to do militarily. That is, I think they're doing a great job. I myself in Tunisia here, and I know Egypt is the same way. The Tunisian people and the Egyptian people are really coming together to assist on the medical care and so on and so forth. I think that's the best they can do. Militarily, I'm not sure that's available to them.
As a Libyan, how do you feel about, I mean, actually this discussion that we're having? As I pointed out in my last question, we're talking about a whole stack of other countries under the banner of the United Nations, or the international community, as we say, deciding what to do about your country.
Well, it is kind of difficult to be sitting in this and kind of thinking through what would happen to my country. It is definitely, the Libyan people, as like I said, they're very, very proud people. And as a matter of fact,